There we go. It's working. All right, we're live. All right, what's going on, guys? We had some technical difficulties. I had to restart my phone, but now it looks like it's working. So tonight, we had to go a little bit early. I got my buddy Hakeem on. He's got a gig he's got to run off to, do some virtual speaking. So just quick background, but I'll let him introduce himself. Hakeem is a retired NFL player, turned real estate investor, public speaker, entrepreneur, businessman, what have you. Just going to connect, have him come in, share some of his experience and stuff like that. So I'm just adding him now. So we'll get him in here, tell you guys what's been going on in his life. Obviously, the speaking world is very reliant upon an audience and a group. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. And he's on now. So Hakeem, thanks for joining, man.
What's going on, Chris? Thanks for having me, bro.
Thanks for sticking with me as the technical stuff went down. But we'll jump right into it then, because I know you got to bounce right at 7:30. You got something else to go to. Can you take 1 to 2 minutes, just tell people who you are, where you're from, your background, and kind of what you do?
Okay, I think I lost you for a quick second, but pretty much you're asking for an introduction, who I am.
Yep.
All that word. My name's Hakeem. I played in the NFL for 3 years. Retired back in February 2019. Been a real estate investor for the past 8 years. Went to Monmouth University and got a degree in business with a concentration in real estate. After retiring from the NFL, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Keep going, but it's freezing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, after retiring from the NFL, continued to invest in real estate. And, since then, I recently just founded a global media agency back in October. And
awesome.
Kind of full-time ripping and running with that lately.
Cool. What does the media agency do?
So right now with coronavirus, we've kind of made a shift on focusing solely on like a turnkey podcast solution for people. But in the grand scheme of things, we focus on the strategy side and then the post-production side of content for real estate professionals, financial services professionals, professional athletes, and small businesses.
Awesome. I think that's hugely interesting. I think that's a really smart idea. Definitely want to get into that more. But can you just touch quickly on some of the stuff that's been going on? First, are you still in St. Louis, or you out of somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm in St. Louis. I actually just moved a week ago. I'm in a new spot. But I'm in St. Louis still.
Okay, cool. Can you touch a little bit just on like what the past, several weeks have been like for you from like the business investing side? Just kind of go into that with everything that's been going on.
Yeah, coronavirus wise, I've been at a complete standstill on a pause. I've been trying to stay super cash heavy right now, just considering the times we're living in, because as markets tend to crash and as economies crash, if you can keep your head above water, when you come out on the other side of this thing, if you got $100,000 in cash, you can make that work like $500,000.
Yep.
Down the road. So my strategy has been staying cash heavy. So with this media company, we've kind of created this product that hopefully can generate a solid amount of top of the line revenue to one, cruise it through these wild times, but then come out on the back end swinging.
I think that's really interesting. Was that something that you had purposefully done for the last 6, 12, 18 months? You're like, hey, I'm going to sit in cash because I think something's going to happen? Or was it just, lucky time? You just happen to have some money that you hadn't decided what to do yet. And lo and behold, now this has happened. You're like, okay, right time, right place. Now I got some money to deploy.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a multitude of, it's a mixture of both. I was really understanding communication and attention at the time, just with my own content, realizing what I could do and realizing the value I was providing to other people and how good I was at it. And then after building a team around myself and realizing that we could actually scale that and help other people, that was when I kind of decided, I think I can actually make this happen. And then that was when I kind of had a self-realization that I actually have a little bit of creative tendencies within myself. And back from like a cash heavy standpoint, it was, in my opinion, I'm a long-term investor, so I'm not necessarily investing to make big time wins in a year or 2 years. I'm investing for the long term. So just understanding market cycles at the time, like October market at its highest point that it's been historically, and just understanding that at some point, historically it's got to go back down. So it was an idea because understanding media, understanding attention, and understanding how companies and their marketing budgets work. Me being an entrepreneur, I know that when the markets do crash, and some of these companies don't have marketing budgets, but do need the help in terms of branding and marketing themselves, I think that's when you can get creative as an entrepreneur and take some equity in some different businesses and long-term continue to use my media machine to drive everything like throughout the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to a certain degree. And it's interesting. I do want to ask you to expand on that, but can you quickly touch on just different types of things you were invested in so people understand all the different areas you're touching on? And then two, can you touch on a little bit more what you mean by how companies are set up and what their marketing budgets are like and how you see that as an opportunity?
Yeah, things I'm invested in. So I'm a real estate investor. I've got 13 units currently, fourplex, duplex, 7-unit. And I'm also an investor in the cannabis space. So I own 40 acres in Michigan, and we have the capacity to put 20,000 square foot warehouses on the land, and we're in the process of developing our first one out.
Nice.
And then from a companies and marketing budgets and how they're set up, small businesses naturally during times like this go to a place of defense, and like it's completely understandable because they don't have necessarily the biggest cash reserves in that sense. But when you go to a place of defense, one of the first things you're most likely to wipe out is that marketing budget. And in a 2020 world, I don't know if you necessarily need a marketing budget, but you definitely need to know how to understand how to communicate on those platforms. But where I'm going with it is you can essentially get creative where, okay, you got a company where that what your company can do can bring value to that company, but that they don't have 5,000, 10,000, whatever your retainer is on a monthly basis. That's where you can kind of get creative in a sense of, okay, maybe I take 10, 15, X% of your business and also handle media and marketing and help you make it through these long terms. And then when shit really hits the fan and we have a larger cash reserve, I think it's also making some strategic investments in some businesses and then having our company handle the marketing side of things.
I love that. I think that's really interesting. That's not even something I had thought about or considered. Has that been a conversation you've had with anyone yet? Or, that's just an opportunity you think is going to come up?
I think it's an opportunity that's going to come up. I've done barter since, like right now, like for example, I'm doing a lot of training, getting back into food wise. So I've got a client who has a meal prep service type of business. And I'm newly single and I don't have the luxury of getting my meals cooked every single meal. So essentially I've taken, with that meal prep company, I get free food and it's in exchange for us kind of doing marketing and stuff like that. But so I guess you could consider that a quasi version of it, but I don't think shit's hit the fan yet. Yeah. I mean, right now we're putting a lot of Band-Aids on a lot of different things. And at some point when the Band-Aids get ripped off, I think that's when things can get a little crazy.
Awesome. So I love all of that. Can you touch a little bit on the real estate side of things, where these properties are and kind of what it's been like for the last 2 to 4 weeks, depending, call it 1 day to 4 weeks on how it's been on those properties?
100%. One's in renovation right now, so there's really nothing to go with that. The other one, we're actually dealing with a lawsuit with the previous owner. That's whole another story.
Those are fun.
And then my fourplex, April 1st just came by, and honestly, all of our tenants paid. So that was really cool, great thing. It's a great feeling, and it was very exciting. But going through this next stretch, who knows of how long, I don't know how bad it can get or could get. So I do plan on making just a phone call to my mortgage company to see what exists. Because if you can get, your mortgage payments paused for 6 months, that's to your advantage at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you want to be as cash heavy as possible right now. So if you can get that pause and just extend your mortgage by 6 months, that's not the end of the world. And at that point, you can also give now your tenants the flexibility and not have that pressure of being able to having to, pay that rent.
Yeah, I think if you can add extra time to your mortgage, I think it's a great service. I have personally heard a lot of people that hasn't been an option, that it's
Gotcha. I haven't called yet.
Yeah, that it's being amortized over, like, if you, let's say you skip 3 months, your next 12 months, they're going to add those 3 months payments.
To your payment, yeah.
Add
I
extra.
figured that's how. Yeah, I figured
So
that's a way to, like, I figured landlords would want to probably do that with some of their tenants, but it's hard because people have budgeted a certain amount for their rent, and then now you're saying, okay, your rent's going from $750 to $950 for the rest of the year because of these last 3 months. It's hard.
yeah.
It's definitely
So
hard.
yeah, for sure. So I think it's interesting. Have you had any of your tenants tell you like, hey, I'm out of a job, or I'm pretty sure I'm going to be out of a job, I'm not going to be able to pay? Or have you had those conversations?
I haven't. So one thing we planned on doing is to kind of be on offense, so we're not surprised next month. We're putting together actually like a little care package for all of our tenants, like I don't know, like wine, water, playing get like some cards or some shit like
I love
that.
it. I love that.
But I think we're also going to have like a small note, not saying like, hey, you don't have to pay your rent, just more like gratitude for them paying their rent. And if they need to talk about anything, like, it's open communication, because I think it's taking it a case by case. But I think something like this, because this isn't normal times we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just say, I'm putting my foot down and I'm doing this with every single case. I think it's truly a case by case. Now with some of these bigger properties and bigger portfolios, I know people like that are going to have a lot of trouble, because when you've scaled it too far, it's hard to kind of be boots on the ground and know exactly what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, if you've over leveraged yourself in any way during this period, you're going to be exposed. So whether that's, call it, tenant to staff ratios, whether it's, actual debt, whether it's, qualifying people, if you've done, instead of, we do most of our properties on like a 3x multiple of their income. If you did, I know some properties that do like 2.5 times, and that's gross. That's not even net. That's not after taxes. So it's now you're talking about after taxes, you might be saying half of their net money is going to rent. I can see people getting exposed like that. I think what you just said is a fantastic idea, especially if you're like, do you have a property management company, or is it you handling the day to day?
No, I've got a property manager. Like, he lives in a unit, and he's for a fourplex. He's lives in a unit. He's a handyman, and he manages it. He's got an undefeated record so far. So
that's awesome. Yeah,
knocking on wood, he's been and the beauty of it is, he's been managing the property for the last 3 years. Starting this year, I think all 4 tenants, they're all family. So it's like, there just hasn't been any issues. I don't even get checks. I get money orders. It's just kind of it's a fluid, very, very fluid process. And he's really taken the power into his hands, and it's been exciting from that angle. But who knows what can happen in these next couple months?
No, of course, man. I would encourage you. I think your idea is fantastic. I would move it up a little bit, though, just from my own standpoint, because
when you say move it up, what do you mean?
Because you were talking about doing it on the 1st, right, of May. I would do it like, oh, okay.
Like tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. I misunderstood then. Yeah. I was going to say
Gotcha,
do it tomorrow, because if the conversation is, hey, May 1st, I don't have it. No, I think that's an awesome idea. I would also look at, like, one thing we've been doing that I think played out really well is putting together like a resource package for everybody. So like, what the local unemployment is, what the local resources are, what the loans are. Like, a lot of people I'm talking to, they don't even realize that the new unemployment stuff is going to be the old unemployment plus an additional $600 per week, which if somebody makes like less than, I think, 50 grand, they're actually going to net more money every week than they would have as if they were working, which
that's real. I think there's so much information. There's value to aggregate.
There's so much info. I literally just signed up for the Wall Street Journal because I was like, there's so much. They've been putting out so much good stuff that like I can only read like a paragraph or two. I was like, I've got to know what the hell's going on. Like, I've got to pay for this. So, dude, information is key right now. A lot of people don't know where to find information. They're worried about other stuff. So the more service you can provide there, I think is going to be killer. I'm curious though, for the project under renovation, have you guys been affected at all? Like, have they halted construction? Has it been tough to find workers? Has it been tough to find materials at all, or not really?
We're right now, we've kind of put everything to a pause still.
Okay.
to take a pause and figure everything out first.
Gotcha.
I think we did well in terms of reserves wise, which is good. So you can kind of adjust your budget a little bit into where those reserves are taking place. I think right now it's really trying to figure out we still don't know how long this thing is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, and I'm sure you're seeing it all over every platform if you follow a bunch of multifamily guys, there's just a lot of just bold predictions of, oh, our industry is straight, blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
Yeah. I mean, that was,
take your time.
dude, it was funny. 6 weeks ago, it was when the stock market crashed 30%. It was, 30%, 40% of real estate investors were, oh, look at the stock market. It sucks. You should be in real estate. And I was like,
it's a lead magnets of,
dude, I was like, and I was just quietly DMing. I put up one thing and I was like, here's why you shouldn't be saying that. And just kind of like giving some examples. And then all of a sudden, what's up, Megan? Just quickly and very, very surely, people started changing their stance. So I just thought it was funny. Curious also too, the cannabis space. I know that was land you guys bought up in Michigan, and you guys have a partner out of Denver, right? Is that still what's going on, or has it changed?
Yeah. So we were actually supposed to break ground in March. As soon as our plan was to break ground when the land thawed out, like right now.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously with everything going on, we're same thing, just taking a pause, figuring out how long it's going to take. Because with this, we've never been rushing. I mean, we bought this land in 2018,
mm-hmm.
and like we're just about to develop on it. We've really taken our time to make sure we did it right. We finalized the agreement probably about only 3 months ago with the company out of Denver. But yeah, once that goes through, we'll break ground on that, and we're in the process of finalizing another agreement with a group out of California.
Awesome.
To do 2 warehouses, and then we'll essentially assess supply and demand of the market.
That's what I was going to ask, because I saw a ton of stuff over the last couple weeks. I hadn't really been paying much attention to the industry because, looking at other things. But as I've seen some stuff over the past couple weeks, I guess what had been happening was the last, 12 months or so, there had been a very large amount of oversupply in the cannabis market, and I guess much less demand than people thought. And then like 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, just sales went flying, through the roof as people were stocking up for this period. I'm curious, not necessarily Corona, talk necessarily, but had that oversupply changed what you guys thought you could do with the land and stuff like that, or not really?
No, we've kind of, I mean, that's obviously from a national scale. We've been just super hyper right now, at least with Michigan, just so hyper focused on that market, and especially being on the cultivation side. From just the way the Michigan landscape is set up, there's vertically integrated operations, and there's just a bunch of third-party dispensaries that don't have a way of getting legal cannabis, because pretty much it used to be the wild west, and essentially anyone could grow up to 60 plants in their own basement. So these dispensaries used to get their stuff from just a random third-party supplier of Chris, who's got 12 pounds in his basement. And now that the Michigan industry is monitoring like everything from seed to sale, so it's a lot harder. That sounded dangerous. It's a lot harder to kind of, those ones who aren't vertically integrated, they're having actual shortages. So as long as our supplies are locked out in that sense, and because we're not being bold, like we have the capacity, like I said, to put 42 warehouses on the land and put 1,500 plants in each warehouse, we could do that from day one, but we're not going to do that because it's too much. But I think another play for us that we're really looking at is when it goes federally legal. I mean, we're set up to be like, we've got an airstrip right in the town. We're set up to be a supplier on a national level, and trying to just figure out what those supply chains look like now.
I think that's really interesting, because I know we looked at partnering with somebody in Portland at one point, probably about 2 years ago now. I wasn't super involved. It was mostly John and Don, but the process that when we spoke to everybody kind of was very similar to what you were saying. It was, especially with Portland, because we were coming in later to the game. It was, hey, you guys are going to set up and you're going to break even for the next 2 years. But what your plan should be is to create a brand recognition and be able to supply on a national level when this does potentially become federally legal. And then you can go from Portland and spread into all these different areas and try to compete on a national stage, and, potentially exit by someone, a larger company buying you out or whatever, if that's the route you wanted to go. So I think that's a really smart way for you guys to be set up, both, anything local. I'm sure you're probably going to be taking cash and just reinvesting it to build it up, especially if you got that much room to grow. And then, when the opportunity arises to potentially go, national, I think that's really smart. So I'm pleased to hear that. Talk to me a little bit about, from a personal and also like a local St. Louis level, what's it been like through this whole thing? When did it really hit? What's it been like? Do you feel like your area is doing a good job of implementing things, stuff like that?
Up and down.
Mm-hmm.
It's Walmart's packed. Everything's packed still, so it's hard to really like. Yeah, they got the distancing policies once you're in the store, but they're packed. And obviously, I'm a hypocrite for even saying that because the only reason I know Walmart's packed is because my ass is there too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
But like, I just think a lot of people just got FOMO. A lot of people really want to get out of the house.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
There's places doing well. Like, I mean, today I had to get my Wi-Fi set up, and they made me go. Like, I didn't want to go to Spectrum, but they made me go to Spectrum. And when I went there, they had a nice little setup in terms, and like I even like screwed up a little bit, and like they had like a little barrier, and I went past the barrier, like thinking like. And he was like, oh, back up. And then they had some solid policies in place. Like I had to put my social security number in, like I had to come up to the counter. And then I was still chilling there after I put it in. I guess somebody from the camera said something through like the headset of the guy he was like, hey, you got to back up. I'm like, oh shit, my bad. I'm like, all right, I can respect that. You know what I mean? But
for sure.
I think it got serious probably today, like literally today, they just closed schools for the rest of the year. But I think it got serious because they didn't hit here till a little bit later, but then it hit fast. And then on top of that here, at least a week ago, the people who had it the most were people from ages 20 through 29.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Probably because everyone was on spring break.
Yep.
Those damn Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's interesting because like that's why I'm really happy I decided to do this, because I wanted to hear, just from firsthand people. Like you read the news and stuff, and you're always curious, but firsthand stuff, how the rest of the country is reacting. Because being in New York, we were maybe not ground zero, but literally the place right after ground zero. It was Washington, then us, and then we just took the throne basically of messing it up. So we shut down hard. Like our schools have been shut down for a while, and that's just kind of been the norm for like 3 weeks now, give or take, maybe like 2.5, like really solid, but like started 3.5 weeks ago. And I know like we own property in Florida, so that's kind of lagged behind. Ohio, like everything else is kind of lagged behind. So it's almost like just seeing stuff a little bit from afar. So it's just so funny to hear, in St. Louis that it's like schools just closed and like this stuff is just being implemented when it's like, hey, I've been, locked inside for 3.5 weeks now. It's just very different. So I think that's really interesting to hear. I do want to wrap up though, because I know you got stuff to go to. I'd love to keep talking. Maybe we'll do a part 2 or something like that. But obviously, if anybody wants to follow you on Instagram, they can just click the little bubble up top. For anybody on YouTube, just in case though, can you tell people where to follow you, where to find out more information, maybe, the media group, whatever.
The media company's name is Perspective Global Media, perspectiveglobalmedia.com.
Mm-hmm.
Social, like YouTube is just Hakeem Valles, but then like Instagram, Twitter is just Hawk Valles 80, which you can see here, just exactly that, Hawk Valles 80. But yeah, and yeah, I answer DM. Sometimes it takes a little time, but I always get back to people.
Awesome. You got any final thoughts for us? Words of wisdom, advice, things like that?
Stay on offense, because a lot of people are going defense right now, and I think first take care of yourself, take care of your family, make sure everybody's all right, and like that's most important. I think don't judge yourself, because a lot of people are putting the pressure of like, oh, it's quarantine, you need to figure your shit out, you need to blah 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 blah.
Yep.
What up, Way? But like in reality, like. No, like figure yourself out, make sure you're straight first. And then if you are straight and if your family's straight, like go on offense. Now, if you got it, it's not the time to be on defense.
Love it. Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Hakeem, thank you so much for watching. Guys, if you're on YouTube, go check him out. If you're watching on IG Live, this will be uploaded to YouTube either tonight or tomorrow morning. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hakeem, thanks for doing this, bud. Have a great night.
No doubt, my guy. Appreciate you.
See ya.